Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel Science Global Immigration. This is Neha Bhalla, regulated licensed Canadian immigration consultant. So yes, today we'll be diving into an important topic, that is citizenship, basically Canadian citizenship for children who are born outside of Canada. So whether you are a Canadian parent or you are someone who is really interested in Canadian immigration rules and regulation, then this video will provide you with valuable insights into the rules and regulations. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So in general, there are three ways by which you can obtain Canadian citizenship. So the most important, that is the basic common two ways of citizenship obtaining are basically the first one. First and foremost, let's talk about the citizenship by birth. So by birth means that in Canada, anyone who is born, on the Canadian soil, that is anyone born inside Canada, is automatically granted the Canadian citizenship. So they don't have to, go for any other formalities for obtaining the certificate. They are automatically granted the citizenship. They just need to apply their Canadian passport and they're good to go. The next one is, the second option is Canadian citizenship by naturalization. So this is one of the another way by which a person can become a Canadian citizen. So this option is available only for the Canadian permanent residents. So permanent residents, people who are permanent resident inside Canada, they have to meet certain criteria. They have to meet the language criteria, that is giving, some language exams. And there are alternative options also for that. Then they have to meet a residency requirement, that is how long they must have remained inside Canada. So they must meet the residency requirement. And then there is also a citizenship test. So they have to give test which covers important questions regarding Canada, like the Canadian history, geography, different regions of the Canada. So such questions are there. So that's a test which they have to give. So if they pass all these criteria, then yes. So this is the second process, that is by naturalization, they can become the citizen of Canada. The third option is about the children who are born outside Canada to Canadian parent. So this is the option that we're going to discuss in detail in our today's video. Now let's start with the first question, that is my child a Canadian citizen if he or she is born outside Canada and I am the parent is a Canadian citizen? So under the Canadian Citizenship Act, the rule is that a child who is born outside of Canada to at least one Canadian parent, it's not necessary, not mandatory that both the parent should be Canadian citizen. If suppose you are a Canadian PR and your husband is a citizen, then also your child will be eligible. So at least one parent should be a Canadian citizen. So yes, a child born outside of Canada to at least one of the parent who is a Canadian citizen is automatically a Canadian citizen at birth. But the condition is, as long as the parent who is a Canadian citizen on the basis of which the child is applying, that parent should have got his citizenship by the way of either birth in Canada or by the second way which we discussed earlier, the process of naturalization. This rule changed basically in 2009. So basically children who are born outside of Canada after April 2009 to a parent who is a Canadian citizen, they will not be granted citizenship. Yes, listen to it carefully, that they will not be granted citizenship if their parent did not obtain citizenship by the first two ways that we discussed, that either by being born in Canada or either by the process of naturalization. So I'll give you an example. Suppose Mr. A and Mrs. A, they are residing outside of Canada now and they are suppose in India, let's say, and Mr. A became a citizen. How he became citizen? Let's say he was not born in Canada and he did not went through the process of naturalization also. So he became a citizen because his father was a citizen, right? So now Mr. A got a citizen because his father was a citizen, not because of his own, right? So in this case, Mr. A's son or daughter, if born outside of Canada, they cannot become a citizen, right? So a child can only become a citizen if his father or mother who is a citizen, why they are citizen, if they were citizen because they were either born in Canada or either became a citizen by the process of naturalization, otherwise not. One very obvious thing, but yes, still I am telling again that a child who is born inside Canada is automatically a Canadian citizen and can obtain Canadian passport irrespective of the status of the parents. So whether the parents are on work permit, permanent resident or citizen does not matter. If the child is born inside Canada, then he or she is a Canadian citizen. But in this video, we are talking specifically about children born outside of Canada to Canadian parents. So children born outside Canada, as I explained in the earlier part, yes, they are eligible to obtain the Canadian citizenship under certain circumstances, rules and regulation. But yes, it is a lengthy process to obtain the proof from the Canadian immigration authorities, a proof that yes, your child is a Canadian citizen. So you have to obtain a Canadian citizenship certificate from the Canadian authorities for you to apply a Canadian passport for your child. Whereas Canadian born children are automatically eligible for the Canadian passport on the basis of their birth certificate. The children born outside of Canada, they have to go through the extra steps before obtaining the Canadian passport. That is the step of obtaining a Canadian birth certificate first, which, as I told, is a lengthy process. Now, the second question, that how can I get a Canadian passport for my child if he or she is born outside Canada? So the first thing is that you need to obtain the proof of the Canadian citizenship certificate. In this, what happens is that the child's biological parent, who is the Canadian citizen, he or she can make the application to the Canadian authorities for obtaining this certificate. So once this process takes place and then your child has been granted the certificate, then the next step is that on the basis of that certificate, you can apply for the Canadian passport for the child. The entire process from getting the certificate to the passport can take approximately over a year. Yes, over a year. That is why it's highly recommended that parents start this process as soon as possible after the birth of their child, because it takes approximately an year. So it's highly recommended you start the process as soon as possible. So answer to the next important question, that is, what if the child and the parent together need to travel to Canada urgently, as in before even obtaining the proof of the citizenship? So even before the child has the certificate of citizenship, what is the process if they want to travel to Canada? Most consulates or embassies, they have this process that you can follow to obtain the emergency travel document for the child. This is an emergency travel document which can be issued by the Canadian government to a child born outside Canada to a Canadian parent. It's totally at the discretion of the Canadian government whether to issue this or not. But yes, there is a process they can issue if they are convinced that you will get the citizenship certificate shortly. With this travel document, that is the emergency travel document, the child will be able to travel with the Canadian parents to Canada. But this travel document is usually valid for one time only. So the child can travel for one time. And yes, then you will have to wait for the certificate and then apply for the passport eventually. But this travel document is most probably valid for one travel only. So the next question is, that is commonly asked by many of the people, is that what to do if the child is not a Canadian citizen. So as I explained you earlier in the earlier part of the video with the example of Mr. A. So that Mr. A was not born in Canada, neither he was a naturalization process citizen. So his child born outside Canada was not a citizen. So in this case, if your child is born outside Canada and is not a citizen, so then what can be done? So now here what you can do is, the first step is you will sponsor the child under the family sponsorship as a permanent resident. Sponsor the child will become a permanent resident, and then he will go to Canada. So after the child is inside Canada, he or she is immediately eligible for the Canadian citizenship. Unlike, people have to meet the residency requirements and then they became eligible. But minor child, who come to Canada as a PR, in this situation, they become eligible for the citizenship without the need to meet the physical residency requirements. So there is no minimum duration they need to stay. They can simply come to Canada as a PR and then they can apply for the Canadian citizenship. Yes, note down, this is only for those whose one of the parent was Canadian citizen, not for those whose parents are both permanent resident, not for those. But remember that if your child becomes a PR after the age of 18, in this case they will not be exempt from the residency requirement. they will have to meet the residency requirement before becoming a citizen, before applying for citizenship. So you can sponsor your child for the permanent residency while they are single and under the age of 22. So these two conditions, single and under the age of 22. After the age of 22, the child is not eligible to be sponsored as a PR. Now the next most common question is that, can my child have multiple citizenship if he is born outside Canada? So the answer to this is yes or no. That is, I'll tell you. So Canada does not have any problem with multiple citizenship. So it depends on the country where the child is born. For example, if the child is born outside Canada, he's born, say, in India. So India does not allow dual citizenship or multiple citizenship. So in this case, the child will have to keep either the Canadian citizenship or the Indian citizenship. But in a scenario, if your child is born in a country which allows dual or multiple citizenship, then in that case, Canada does not have any problem with multiple citizenship. So in that case, child can keep both countries' citizenship. If you have any doubts or queries, or if you want to file your application through us, whether it be a citizenship application or any other Canadian immigration related application, you can contact us at the below WhatsApp number, and you could also go ahead and book a consultation with me at the below link. And yes, we'll be more than happy to help you. And yes, if you like the video, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and yes, don't forget to subscribe the channel. Thank you so much.